The shrine room which you have just entered through was a very different room in February of 2002, and its main function was as a spa room. Patty always maintained a small shrine in the room for her private devotion, and it comprised the statues of the Sacred Heart and of Our Lady of Lourdes. On the day of March the 19th in the year 2002, Patty was at the shrine and noticed something unusual about the statue of Our Lady. The first thing she noticed was a sweet fragrance in the air reminiscent of roses, and then she observed two shining streaks which appeared to stream down the face of the statue. On closer examination she found some small drops of fluid hanging on the chin of the statue, and these are the first photos taken of that event. Patty informed her assistant parish priest and was told that this was a private revelation and it would stop. Pray about it, but do not worry about it. It seemed to be reasonable advice, as the next day the weeping did cease and the statue's face returned to its normal state. The difference between the weeping face and the dry face was as profound then as it is now. Whenever the image is not weeping, the face is dry and matte, and when the face has a shine or a shimmer, it is a fairly safe thing to say that it is weeping, as the flow is rarely noticeable as large drops which we would associate with human tears. On occasions people have noticed the flows, and sometimes it has been photographed, and once it was even caught on film. The statue next wept at the Easter weekend of 2002, and again Patty was told it is a private revelation. Do not worry, and again the weeping stopped. On the feast day of Corpus Christi of that year, again the statue wept for one day and ceased. On August the 14th, 2002, Patty arrived at her home after completion of her day's work at Colby Catholic College. The day was significant, as it was also the feast day of St. Maximilian Kolbe, and the eve of the Feast of the Assumption. When Patty entered her door, her senses were immediately struck by the fragrant scent of roses in the air. She knew what this meant, and went to the statue of Our Lady, and the face was streaming in a greater flow than ever before. Patty decided to take the statue to the church one more time, and this time the parish priest, Father Walsh, was back at the parish after an extended absence. He saw it and decided to place the statue beside the altar for Mass the next day. The statue stayed in the church until Friday of that week, when Father Walsh said to remove it. On the Saturday following, Father Walsh went into the church in the afternoon to hear confessions, and upon entering he was surprised to find that the entire church had taken on the scent of roses. After that he asked Patty to bring the statue back and to display it.
I feel really blessed and feel really humbled.
Most unusual, and I've seen lots of statues of Our Lady, but I've never seen any one of them weeping like that.
The statue went on display at the church, and after a few days an unknown person contacted the local Catholic newspaper, The Record, and it was arranged for a photographer and a journalist to come to the parish and conduct an interview with Father Walsh and with Patty. The story was compiled, and it was advised that the Archbishop would have the final say on whether or not it was released or held back. On the following Tuesday, Archbishop Hickey visited Patty at her home and witnessed the statue's tears. He was later reported as saying that he had come to scoff and had stayed to pray. And so it was, on that Tuesday afternoon in early September 2002, that the Archbishop of Perth knelt in that spa room in front of that small statue and prayed with all who were present to witness the occasion. He gave permission for the release of the story, and it was in print and in the parish on Thursday.
Suppose I went to scoff and remained to pray. And in fact I did. I went down on my knees with the others and we said a prayer. As soon as I saw it, I was affected. I lost my scepticism. I said, there's something going on here.
Oddly, Patty had interviews with the BBC and South Africa and Spain and other overseas news services before the story even hit the local newspapers. Eventually Germany, France, the UK and Poland would dispatch reporters to cover the story. The statue had its first public display following the story on the Sunday of the week that the Record had published, and about 5,000 people were estimated to be there on that day. The church was filled to capacity, and the crowds formed a giant queue through the car park in an effort to be able to enter the church and see the statue. The crowds were never much smaller for the rest of the days that the statue was displayed in the church, and the following 10 weeks that it was displayed proved to be a special time of great prayer and devotion, and a time of flowing graces, and an overwhelming sense of community. As a result of the widespread interest in the statue both locally and worldwide, a decision was made to subject it to a battery of scientific tests and analysis, the final outcome of which was that there was no fault in the structure of the statue, and that the fluid could not be analysed specifically as to what its nature was. And so the mystery remains. In a momentous decision, the Archbishop decided to institute a commission, run by the Church and operating under Church auspices. This was the first time in Australian history that such a commission had been formed. But in the outcome that was to follow, the decision was ambiguous, and simply there is still the mystery to be solved.
I'd be very intrigued to see where the fluid is actually coming from. It doesn't look like there are physical holes inside.
Next test was by biomedical scientist Gary Whittaker, who used a powerful microscope to check for holes that could be releasing the tears.
We actually looked at it at 40 times its normal size, scanned over the eyes, particularly at the corner of the eyes on either eye, just to make sure it wasn't coming from the corners. But we could actually see pooling, and it was actually pooling as we were looking at it. So it's very, very intriguing.
There were no hidden channels, there were no apertures near the eyes or in any other place. So they were quite happy with the scientific investigation of the internal space of the statue. Externally, it had no cavities, and so the statue had not been tampered with. Yet the proof, the strict proof, is not there.
Given the absence of any evidence, though, does it mean that it's a fake?
Oh, no. It means that there are questions still to be answered.
When the statue was not at the church or in Father Walsh's office, it was available to be viewed in Patty's home. The shrine was moved to the end of the room where it now stands, and at first the statue was displayed on a low table, which quickly was revealed to be unsatisfactory because of the vulnerability of the statue to possibility of damage by overzealous hands trying to touch it or to take the oil, which was gathering on a plate upon which it stood. In August of 2003, a photograph was taken of the shrine in the form to which it had evolved at that stage. The photo had a strange light formation in the upper left sector of the image, where no artificial light source existed.